Johnson's with us as well. Again, Jason spent time here in Sanford gauging the community. Jason, let's talk about it. How critical are you of the prosecution, the way they presented this case as it went down? Were you thinking to yourself, they're not hitting this, they're not establishing the narrative they need to establish here?
Well, I thought that when I heard the closing arguments, and I've said before, you know, Mark O'Mara's closing argument was very boring. And the reason it was boring is because he was repeating points that his side, that the defense had been making for 2 weeks. I don't think the prosecution was necessarily as effective as they could have been until their closing arguments. But again, to those who have any sort of cynicism or apprehension about how the justice system operates when it comes to minority lives, that's par for the course. I mean, you know, they did not do as aggressive a job as they could. And Angela Corey last night really hit an awful tone with how smiley and friendly she seemed to be. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of questions that can be had about how the prosecution did their job.
Well,
although Jason, she looks
that
smiley, but
was a smart thing. I mean, I thought it was kind of a smart thing. It's funny how everybody has different reactions, but I thought it was kind of a smart thing for her to put a spin on it, a positive spin on this, because often how people view something is how you say. If you're a person in authority, you say, okay, here's what you should think about this case. It's not that bad. And so, Tanya Miller, here's the thing about this prosecution case that bugged me from the get-go, and it's a visual thing. I can visualize, whether it's true or not, what the defense said happened that night in that little area at the retreat at Twin Lakes. I had a real hard time wrapping my mind around what the prosecution said happened that night. Now, at one point, very late in the case, Bernie De La Rianda seemed to say, look, maybe they were rolling around, and maybe the reason why you see some witnesses say one was on top and the other witness says the other's on top is because they were rolling on top and they were taking turns, just like you do when you have a scuffle, you roll around. Why didn't he say that in the opening statements? Why didn't he present a picture of what he thinks happened that night?
Well, you know, I think that was a strategic decision. I have seen cases like this where the only other eyewitness besides the defendant is no longer here to tell the jury exactly what happened. And so the prosecutor has to piece together his case and his theory using circumstantial evidence. I don't know that I would have committed to a version of what happened in opening statements, but I do think strategically you do run a risk as a prosecutor by not telling the jury what happened. Even if you don't have a witness there to say exactly what happened, you really have to give them the scenario that fits the evidence. The prosecutors chose to take another route in this case. They chose to bank on the fact that this jury would hold the fact that you cannot tell exactly what happened against the defendant because he killed the only other eyewitness. That was a risk. That was strategic. And, you know, like it or not, that was their decision to make. I do think you run a risk when you don't tell the jury because they want you to tell them. You're the prosecutor. They're looking to you to tell them what this evidence means. They're looking to you to tell them the story, what happened to this victim. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And I know different prosecutors view this differently. And I think it was a strategic decision. It may have hurt them at the end of the day, but overall, I think they did a good job trying this case. I think they believed in their case. I think that came across in their closing argument. They were committed to the idea that this was second-degree murder, whether you agreed with it or not. And I think that meant a lot to some people who were watching this trial.
Okay, you don't want to miss a moment. Keep it